Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com, and you can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about zipdx.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the webs, hosted by bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you are. Welcome to VUC number 543, which features Big Blue Button. And but before we get into that, I should like to give a shout out to a couple of events that we have that will be coming up shortly. Beginning with TADHack, which is in the middle of June, focused on telecom developers and hacking telecom APIs. It's principally, the main event's going to be in Lisbon, but in fact there are going to be events all around the world, so check out tadhack.com and you'll be able to find out how you can join in. Following that, chronologically, we have early August ClueCon, which is hosted by the group behind FreeSwitch. They will be presenting their latest and greatest, and we'll be talking about FreeSwitch this hour, I'm sure. Their event is in Chicago. It is by developers for developers, and it is a good time, also educational. A little further down the year, Digium will be presenting AstraCon, October 13th through 15th in Orlando, Florida. This is the premier event for the Asterisk user and developer community. If you're at all in any way involved in the Asterisk space, this is the place to go. And so, hi, I'm Michael Graves, and I am stepping in for Randy, who is in Berlin with many of our regulars at Camellia World this week. There's a chance that Randy may join us, but bandwidth at conference is being what it is, and also schedules and whatnot. It's not really clear whether he'll make it or not. And I should like to say hello to Fred.
Hi. Hi, Michael.
How are you doing, Fred? Fred is project manager with Big Blue Button, and he is in Ottawa, Canada. Now, it's been a long time since we've seen you, Fred, and let's wind it back to the beginning for folks and actually take a look at, what is Big Blue Button anyway?
So, Big Blue Button is an open source web conferencing system for online learning. Our goal is that every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience, and that's what we intend to deliver with Big Blue Button.
That's awesome. Now, Mr. Samsung, thou art muted, coming off of ZipDX. Incidentally, while we're here, anybody who's on ZipDX right now, if you want to pose a question at some point down the stream, star 6 to unmute yourself, but for the moment we're going to get back to a little bit more basics about what is Big Blue Button, what's it do, and then we'll move on to a little more about its current status. So Fred, what do you got for us? Okay,
so I thought, just so that I didn't make any assumptions on what people knew or know about Big Blue Button, I have a couple slides I can share with you, actually a few, but I'm going to go through them quickly, and that will give everybody a pretty good update of where we've been doing for the project. The project's been in play for over 6 years now. It's almost 7 years. So if you'd like, I can just share a couple slides for a few minutes, and then I'll probably just answer any questions folks have.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to go to here, and I'm going to go view full screen. Okay, so I'll talk for the next probably 15-20 minutes, but I figure I can give you a pretty good update of the project. And for those of you that saw, the last time we presented on VUC was 2 years ago, so much good stuff has happened. So just a background, there is a strong trend for educational institutions to move towards online learning. Just some stats, there's about 4,500 degree-granting institutions in North America alone. about 25,000 secondary schools, and that's just in the United States. Like there's a lot more worldwide, and there's a huge benefit to students around the world have access to online learning. So with all markets, you can ask, well, what about open source solutions for doing the conferencing for online? And that is what Big Blue Button, we designed it for, and we've been developing it for and delivering it for. So we believe every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience, and we intend to make that possible with Big Blue Button. And Big Blue Button is open source. Code is available at GitHub. A little background, this project actually started in 2007 at Carleton University. We're based in Ottawa, Ontario, where a lot of the development goes on. You can tell it's a university because they still have a chalk card. The 3 use cases we designed Big Blue Button for is one-to-one, sort of virtual office hours, tutoring, and then small group collaboration, which is kind of similar to this. You have a bunch of people getting together, they're sharing their webcams, everybody's talking, and then the traditional one-to-many. And that's where a teacher is talking to students. And the teacher could be the context of K-12, could be higher ed, or corporate learning, anytime you want to teach people online. And you'll see in our project we say we recommend it for 50 users or less. It's not hard-coded. It's actually more capacity there. It's just as an open source project, we like to be conservative, and because we're Canadian, we're conservative by nature. In terms of the capabilities of Big Blue Button, so there's a demo server online, demo.bigbluebutton.org, and anybody can go to it anytime. But we do the core of desktop sharing, audio, video, slides, and chat. The client is in Flash. We use audio as of our last release. It's the WebRTC-based audio. So if you're on Firefox or Chrome, you'll enjoy all the benefits of WebRTC-based audio. If you're using Safari or IE, it just seamlessly uses Flash. A couple of screenshots. Here's an example of a layout where you're sharing 4 HD webcams. Here's an example where you're sharing 9 webcams and one of them is larger. Then an example of sharing 9, more of a checkerboard. And in Big Blue Button, the data all goes through a central server, the Big Blue Button server, and it's recorded. And for pedagogic needs, this is important. So if a student is unable to attend a class, wants to review it, they can review it. And we record all the content. It's a synchronized playback of media, the video, the desktop sharing, the audio, and the slides, and all the whiteboard marks come through as SVG. There's a thumbnail here in the chat. So you can do a lecture online, record it, students can access it later on. In terms of the project growth, we're on Facebook, we have 4,000 likes, we have 2,500 Twitter followers. I always like to say it's all organic, no special preservatives. We didn't pay anybody to like us, we didn't pay anybody to follow us. The cool stuff that happens on GitHub, there's about almost 2,500 forks of the project now. It's a very active open source project. We have a developer mailing list as well, Google Groups, Big Blue Button, or Big Blue Button-dev. I just checked recently, there's almost 2,000 members and lots of traffic through the months. We use Transifex for our localization. The product is now localized into over 60 languages, and about 90% of them have, well, actually, there's about 20 here that have over 90% localization. Each time we get close to release, the community comes together, make sure that their favorite language is localized, and we just pull from Transifex, and that does the localization for the client. We hold 2 developer summits each year, and it usually bounces back and forth between Brazil, usually in Porto Alegre, and in Canada. So there's a number of universities down in Brazil that have really adopted Big Blue Button, and they've got some developers there who have been working on it for a number of years. One of the projects, MConf Technologies, actually builds on top of Big Blue Button. So we go down there and we spend a week with their developers, and then they come up here in Ottawa and they spend a week with us. And we've been doing this now. We just held our 6th developer summit. Actually, that says 4. It should say 6. In terms of the project, Big Blue Button has a core group of committers who have worked for many years on the project. And unlike a project where you just have committers and you accept everything, no, in building a real-time system that has sharing of audio and video, you spend a lot of time on quality. So there are 6 people who are involved, and Richard Alam, he's the lead architect. He's the person who initiated the project, actually back in 2007 at Carleton University. In terms of adoption, just some things. Lots of universities and colleges use Big Blue Button. Darren Ricketts, University of West Scotland, on YouTube, he's got a testimonial. Very large universities use it. So here's the University of Florida. They're using Big Blue Button. Another very large university, National University Online. It's one thing to build a web conferencing system, but one of our measures for success is it used? Do people actually use it, and is it adoption? And also not only adoption, but the support effort as well. So Marianne Duval, the Senior Director of IT, they had switched from a previous solution, which I won't mention, but a previous commercial solution to an open source solution based on Big Blue Button. And they said after switching, their support tickets dropped from like 50 a month down to 6 or 7. And from my point of view, from the product management point of view, this is what we're trying to achieve. My goal is the adoption of Big Blue Button continues to increase, and the support effort to support it or integrate it or extend it continues to drop. Some other usage of it right now, as we speak, there's an online Moodle conference, iMood. Its hashtag is iMood15. You could take a look at it and you can see all the tweets. It's a fully online Moodle conference, 2 concurrent sessions running for I think 3.5 days, over 60 speakers. It's entirely done in Big Blue Button. So people have attended the Moodle courses, they go into the course, they join the session, they watch, just like we're doing here, but with Big Blue Button. And then it's recorded and it's available inside of Moodle afterwards. In the educational market space, integrations, there's a lot of existing systems. Universities, colleges, schools, corporations would already have some system that they would like to integrate Big Blue Button with. So some very popular ones, so WordPress. So we do the WordPress integration, and here the stats show it's over 1,000 users in use. We keep this up to date with every new version of WordPress. Sakai, an LMS, learning management system that's in use by many large educational institutions. There's something called the Sakai meeting tool. We keep it up to date as well. And I should say I actually wear, my other hat is I'm involved in a company called Blindside Networks, and we're the company that started the Big Blue Button project. It originated at Carleton. We made it public. We maintain and manage the releases, and we also update a lot of the open source integrations. So we just want the project to grow. So all members of the Big Blue Button community, the universities, the colleges, commercial companies, developers and that, can benefit from it. Other very large commercial LMS vendors, Schoology integrated Big Blue Button with their system. Canvas, which has grown remarkably over the last couple of years, and Structure integrates Big Blue Button with their system. They call it Canvas Conferences. And Moodle. Moodle is probably one of the most well-known open source open source learning management systems. So there's plugins there that I'm the co-developer of one of them. Last 12 months, it's been downloaded over 105,000 times. And I actually looked at the stats. You can see the actual use of it, the number of sites using it. It's about 2,700 now. So this is just increasing. As Moodle grows, so do people look for a synchronous learning tool to complement the asynchronous, and a lot of them are looking and using Big Blue Button. Okay, so let's switch over to the techie side of it now. Just what is Big Blue Button in terms of the architecture? Simply put, there's the front end, the client would fire up in Flash, and we're working on an HTML5 client, which I have a couple screenshots in a moment. There's a back-end server that's built on Red 5, an open source implementation of Adobe Flash Media Server. We use FreeSwitch for the audio, so the voice conferencing is taken care of by FreeSwitch. That includes the WebRTC audio. Redis is in there. We're recording all the content. So after a session's done, we record all the live content, the webcams, the desktop sharing, the audio, the slides, the chat, the whiteboard images. All that gets recorded, and then we have a process to take that and turn it into a playback format. And then those playback files are visible through the API calls, which are what the front-end applications use to create meetings, join users, and access the recordings. We just finished our 12th release, call it 0.90, and I have a telephony background. I used to work at a telecommunications company. So for us, my goal in the project is stability is first. It's stability, usability, features, security, scalability, in that order. So the last release, we spent 11 months doing development, and we finished it. All the code was done, and then we spent 6 months in beta testing. And that meant that we saw a lot of production use of Big Blue Button. A lot of people realize our betas are actually pretty good, and we just continued to improve it and fix bug after bug, whatever we could do to make it solid. And people ask us on our project, when is the release date for Big Blue Button? And our mantra is we release on quality, not dates. So we just tell people you can sense when a release is coming as we move through our process. So after 6 months of development, we had a release candidate. For us, a release candidate is it's done. Everything is finished, and all we do is change the label. We put it out there for 2 weeks in our community. No responses in terms of any issues, and we're pretty sure we had the release in hand given the amount of beta testing, and then we released it on April 30th. So that's all up on our website, bigbluebutton.org. You can see it, lots of good documentation as well. Things that we're working on in the future release, we want to add polling to Big Blue Button. We want to add closed captioning, very important for students. We support screeners with JAWS. We also want to support closed captioning. And there's some updates. We're improving the video doc, adding more security to it, extend the API, and we also added webhooks. So third-party applications could register things like tell me when a user joins the meeting, or tell me when a meeting ends, and they'll get a callback on it. Again, we want to make it easy as possible to integrate with other systems. A couple screenshots of what the new video doc will look like. So if you're in Big Blue Button and you're sharing webcams, you can get some nice layouts of it. Here's an example of where it's just a single strip. Those are 4 independent videos being shown. And if you want to just focus the videos more than anything else, here's an example. And it will just checkerboard. I saw one instance where there were 21 webcams being shared in Big Blue Button. So there's no hard-coded number on the webcams, just literally whatever bandwidth you have. And bandwidth is getting better over time. We're working on a polling module as well. I won't go into detail on that. This is sort of some things that we're working on for the next release. Let me talk about, if I anticipate what people are going to say, it's like, hey, Big Blue Button's great. You guys seem to do a decent job of it. What about a non-Flash version? So we've been working on an HTML5 client on Big Blue Button for quite a while. Here's a screenshot of it. You can see it looks much cleaner. And the idea is that for a first release, it will target basically a student. The instructors are still going to use the desktop, the web client, but a student would be able to whip out their Android device. And the reason I say Android is we're building on top of WebRTC, so that means Chrome or Firefox, and that means WebRTC support on mobile is good on Android and not so good on iOS. I would love Apple to come out with a WebRTC-supported browser, or allow the other browser manufacturers to put their own rendering engine inside. But Apple does as Apple does. They seem to be getting very successful. So, if there was a backlash from the community and said, hey, we really want to see a WebRTC support, or we're not buying an iPhone, then I think Apple would start to take more interest. But again, we're pragmatics. We do what works. We don't really, we look at always improving the product, but we're pragmatics in terms of what is the best solution today. We would say WebRTC is the best solution for audio, video, desktop. So our phase 1 for the HTML5 client is we're going to do two-way audio and chat, be able to view the desktop sharing, view the presenter, advance the slides. In terms of the architecture, again, just briefly, the HTML5 client, we basically are using Meteor with MongoDB to handle all the synchronization of clients, and we've done a lot of refactoring in the Big Blue Button backend so that when a user comes in, whether they come in through a Flash client or an HTML5 client, it comes together in the Big Blue Button server, the audio is shared, they all see the same presentation. One of our goals is that the instructor never has to ask, can you see what I'm pointing at? They would always see, the users would always see exactly what the instructor sees. So they upload presentations, annotated, and so on. The phase 2, our plans are to do two-way video, and again, we're building on top of FreeSwitch, and as Michael alluded, there's lots of good things happening in the FreeSwitch project, which we look at building upon. FreeSwitch project rocks, by the way. We love it. And in the terms of the client, we'll just simply increase the capabilities of the HTML5 client, adding more presentator, whiteboard capabilities, and then at some point we will get parity with the Flash-based client. And at that point, it's possible that we may just move to a full HTML5 client. That is the direction we're headed in, but there's a lot of people using Big Blue Button today. Students come in, they don't really care what it is that they're running, that's in so much as that they can have a really good, high-quality online learning experience. So today that's one technology, we're moving to another, and again, we're very pragmatic about it, with a very high threshold for the releases to make sure they're really stable. And the product roadmap. So things that we're working on ahead, breakout rooms, this is with my product management hat on, shared whiteboard, synchronized video playback, shared notes, and we're also working on a native iOS and Android client. Our focus right now, though, is on the HTML5 client. We just think that's going to probably have a bigger benefit to our community, but we are also working on native iOS clients, so those on iOS could bridge into a Big Blue Button session. But you're going to see more on the HTML5 client in the near term. Other things that some of these are actually not hard to do, like emote icons, but we just focus on so many core things like how can we improve the audio? How can we, and we did so with WebRTC and the core features of the product. So some of these things like emote icons, thumbnails for recordings, faster desktop sharing using WebRTC, full screen support for right to left languages. These are all things that are kind of like, some of these percolate in the background, and if they get far enough along, we merge them in, and then we make them as part of the next release. Last slide is we have recently updated our documentation, so we know how important it is for other developers to come and see API docs, overview docs, really good installation docs, and so on. So you'll find it at docs.bigbluebutton.org. And that's what I wanted to cover. I wanted to give you as much as I could, a quick update on where we are on the project, where we're headed, what we're working on, what our priorities are, how we've been managing the project, where we're headed next. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions folks have.
Aha! Well, let's get your camera back so we can see who we're talking to instead of looking at a screenshot of the rest of us. And we'll open up the floor to questions both from those folks who have joined the Hangout and also to folks from ZipDX who are unmuted and have their audio back now for some time. So my question would be, it's a non-technical question. It's not specific, but when last you were here, the HTML5 client was, which is a little over 2 years ago, it was 2 years in March. The HTML5 client was an idea. I don't know that there was any code in place yet. But what was the experience like with that and onboarding WebRTC?
All right, so
tell us about that.
I'll talk about WebRTC first. We went through a number of testing. First, we actually used Asterix for WebRTC because before FreeSwitch could support FreeSwitch could support WebRTC, Asterix had it. So we actually put an Asterix server in front of our FreeSwitch server. So if you install Big Blue Button, you get a FreeSwitch system in there. And then we moved to the developer builds of FreeSwitch, and then we built on top of it. So FreeSwitch gives us the WebRTC. What we wanted to do was, hey Ken, what we wanted to do was also make it seamless for users in the client. So we needed, from Flash, to be able to basically tell the browser, I need you to set up a WebRTC call. So obviously that's SIP. So first we used SIP-ML, then we use JS SIP, and then we moved to SIP.js. And this is over a period of about 1.5 years, where FreeSwitch got really good supporting WebRTC. The browsers, they were evolving, right? We had examples where, oh, Chrome or Firefox 34 is out and they don't work with WebRTC. Oh, okay, well, we'll just fix it. And but it was about 1.5 years of effort. And I'm very happy with the results because the users click the headset icon. It'll, underneath the hood, determine if they're Firefox or Chrome and use WebRTC. We bring them into an echo test first. Again, this is FreeSwitch, the echo test audio. And that lets them check to see that their mic is working, going all the way to the server, all the way back in the headphones. And then they can join. And we also did a listen-only mode where you can join a Big Blue Button session and you're not actually sharing audio. And there's a single channel that goes into the FreeSwitch server, and then that's rebroadcast out to all the listen-only with in Big Blue Button. So then the HTML5 client. So when we spoke 2 years ago, we were probably already working on it. We've been working on this for over 2 years. We have rewritten it about 3 times along the way, going from, I think we used to use Backbone.js and then to Meteor. I think we used to use Bootstrap. Now we're using Foundation and iterative the design. And again, my philosophy is when people see it for the first time, we want to have a good first experience. But a lot of refactoring had to go in the back end because we had tied very closely to Flash and the messaging. So now a lot of the messages that get passed back and forth in the server are JSON based. We use Meteor to handle all the HTML5 clients, and those HTML5 clients connect through SIP using SIP.js to FreeSwitch. So the audio just fell out. It's like we don't have to do anything with that because that's already well supported. But a lot of work's been going into it. We have a developer builds now of the HTML5 client that anybody can come to docs.bigbluebutton.org, see it, install it, and they would be able to try out the latest builds. And it's under active development. Hey, Brian. There are a few folks who, we have a number of developers working full-time on the HTML5 client, And my goal is once we get the desktop sharing piece in play, so that you can share your desktop in Big Blue Button, and the HTML5 clients would see it. Again, it goes back to you never have to ask the students, can you see what I'm looking at? Then you're going to see an HTML5 client become part of the Big Blue Button core. And then we'll just continue to improve it as time goes on.
Cool, cool. And so with all of this evolution, has the rate of uptake and deployment increased? Do you have some
Yes.
beyond the slides? I mean.
Yeah. So I mean, I go to quite a few educational conferences. I have folks from universities call me up to me and say, "We use Big Blue Button," and I would be like, "Great, we've never spoken to you." There are a number of commercial products, many of them I know of, that have embedded Big Blue Button or parts of Big Blue Button into their commercial offering. They would maybe be a voice conferencing provider, and then they want to add web conferencing. With the improvements we added with the benefit in WebRTC, with the localizations that we provide, with the growth in the community, we see an increasing adoption in Big Blue Button, both educational and both from developers who are embedding it inside their systems.
And how does this help you? I mean, do you have like a core user base that are basically funding the project and ensuring that it carries on, or
yeah?
How does the contributor base grow as the deployed base grows?
Right. Or in other words, how do we eat as we still work on Big Blue Button? So I've watched other open source projects, and I watched them struggle where there's very passionate developers, but there's no business model behind it. And God love them, they put their heart and soul into it, but maybe there's no means for someone to pay, and they would pay for something. So Big Blue Button has a small group of developers behind it. Many of them work at commercial companies, or all of them do. The company that started the Big Blue Button project, Blindside Networks, I'm the CEO of the company. So my goal, I wear the two hats. My goal is first build the Big Blue Button ecosystem, and then we turn around and offer services and support to that ecosystem, as do other companies do. They're listed on the bigbluebutton.org website. And we earn money. There's no donation. There's no place you can donate to the Big Blue Button project. I think that's a silly way to run an open source project. We earn money by providing support and services, and so do other members of the Big Blue Button ecosystem do the same. And we know there's commercial companies. I'll give you an example. Many times in the past, the commercial companies come to us and said, "Wow, this is actually pretty good. We'd like to build it into our product, and we need your help." And we'd say, "Great, we can provide you some professional services." And they would say, "Great, we want you to build this proprietary component for us, so only we have it." And then we would say, "No, that's not what we do. We will improve the Big Blue Button project for you, and you get to bend it in the terms of, like, if you think integration with other systems or improvements to the whiteboard are important, those all go back into the open source project, because everybody before you, when they contributed to the development, it all went to the open source project. So we're not going to just stop and suddenly start doing proprietary stuff." I don't think we've ever had a company walk away from us and say, "Well, no, we want that." We can always find a middle ground where we'll extend Big Blue Button in a means that makes it very easy for them to build their proprietary component. So maybe there's an extra API call that gets made or something like that. But we earn money doing it. The company builds around Big Blue Button. They then generate more revenue as well. And sometimes those turn into long-term support contracts. There's going to be an announcement coming out in the near term that a very large government organization is actually saving a lot of money with Big Blue Button, and they've been building on top of it for about a year and a half now. And that made me feel very good, because I heard firsthand the story of how they downloaded Big Blue Button. And they're like, "Wow, let's try out an open source solution. There's lots of commercial vendors out there." And it was like, this actually is not bad. This is our previous release, not the one we just released. And then they started building on it and reviewing it, and over time they decided to build a system upon Big Blue Button to replace a commercial system they were using. And that was very satisfying. So I think, Michael, we are at a point where we have a really solid product, and I invite anybody to try it out. We have very clear ideas of where we want to go to. We have a business model that allows us to grow the company, and it's an open source project where other people can benefit on it. And we're 6.5 years into it, and we are, I always used to joke, either we're too stupid to know You know, either we're really smart and we can figure this stuff out, or we're just too stupid to know how difficult it is, and we just kept banging against it. And I think it's a combination of both. So we continue to see good growth.
Excellent, excellent. And are you staying within your niche? I mean, academia seems to be the focus. Is that something that you intend to stay focused on and let others move into other directions, maybe building on it?
Yeah. So this is my third company that I've with my Blindside Networks hat on. It's my third company I co-founded, and I learned a long time the necessary focus. So here's how we look at it. If we provide a really good solution for online learning, K-12, universities, corporate training, and it covers the core audio, video, slides, chat, desktop sharing with record and playback integration, then we can build a presence in that market and become a market leader. In doing so, we're obviously solving the same types of problems, collaborative problems, in other markets. It's just different context. But our focus, our product design is based around online learning. How can we provide that remote student a high-quality online learning experience? So our intent is to continue to focus, and we see lots of companies taking Big Blue Button and applying it to other areas, which I think is awesome. I mean, we can't do everything. So do you do lots of things and none of them very well, or do you focus on one market, be successful, and then obviously grow from that market? So that is our strategy.
Excellent, excellent. And let's see, we have quite a panel before us now. Wow. You guys are all muted. You want to step in and pose your questions, make your comments, state your observations and experiences. Go right ahead, sir.
All right, so just, you said it's based on FreeSwitch, so does that mean you can also join these sessions not from the web, but for example from a hard phone or other devices?
Yes. We know companies that provide hosting for Big Blue Button, and they provide dial-in numbers as well. So, you know, the great thing about it is the WebRTC audio is freaking amazing. Like, again, the Moodle conference that's going on right now using Big Blue Button, they have presenters all over the world, Denmark, Australia, South America, Canada, all these far-flung places, and the quality is amazing. So, but it's great that FreeSwitch. It's great. I mean, we're very much pleased with the choice of building on top of FreeSwitch because it provides the option of providing the dial-in numbers. But we just see them used less and less because the WebRTC-based audio is just so good.
Go ahead, Brian.
So you did notice we released FreeSwitch 1.6 yesterday, which is the video branch. When can we expect to see some of those new enhancements integrated into Big Blue Button?
Man, we're working on it now. What we're going to do first is, for us, the desktop sharing, we use Java for desktop sharing, and again, we're pragmatists, it works, but we really want to use WebRTC. So the first goal is, can we just use the video in FreeSwitch to support WebRTC-based desktop sharing? And because you got VLC in there and you can set it an RTMP stream, that's what basically we're wiring up right now. And then the next bit would be is we would then use it for the video. So obviously, if you're on an Android tablet, you're going to share the video through WebRTC. Our Flash client would share the video through WebRTC. We get back that beautiful multiplexed view that you've got, and now we've got parity between both the HTML5 users and the Flash users. So that's kind of the two-step that we're working on, and we're working on it right now. If I picked up the laptop and walked into the next room, I could show you the developers who are working on it. But yeah, like we think we made the right choice by far building on top of FreeSwitch. So just when we needed more video, you guys have been working away at it.
So are you going to be making it to ClueCon this year?
I have camping with my family at that point, and I have a hierarchy of needs. So I cannot go. I think we're going to be more visible on the weekly calls, and maybe more one-on-one, but I'm not sure if anyone's going to be able to make it, just because of how the schedule works. So we got to figure something out, but we actually may not be there, but we are working with it full-time, Brian.
You guys should be aware that in the last couple days we checked in full RTMP video support as well.
Nice. Nice.
And also, VLC will do the RTMP streaming, but you should look at the LibAV way. It looks like it's more stable and less heavy than the VLC one.
Cool. I'll let the guys know. That's the piece that we needed because it gets us right back into the video. So other users who are Flash-based see it through RTMP. Other users who are HTML5-based see it through WebRTC. And that's what we want to achieve. Great, guys. Good work to you.
Awesome.
All right. Any further questions? Particularly anybody coming out of ZipDX, *6 to unmute yourself if you're interested. If I wanted to spin something up just to play with, is there a VM I could grab, or do I have to do it piecemeal, or what's the install process look like?
So we actually had a VM for the last release. I'm still on the fence whether to do a VM for this release, just because it's so easy now to spin up a clean Ubuntu 14.04 server, and then there's a couple steps we have in the documentation, and you take about, the way we like to say it in Big Blue Button is, we guarantee that you can install Big Blue Button on your system in half an hour or less, or we give you your money back.
Aha.
Very similar to our double your money back.
There you go. Exactly. Like what other open source projects give you this level of guarantee? Really, I mean. So it wouldn't take you too long to set it up. It's a kind of satisfying experience. There's a video online. If you Google YouTube, like install Big Blue Button, I did a video where I literally just started to capture my screen and walk through the entire installation step by step. So watch that. Do it on your own system. You should have a Big Blue Button server up and running shortly.
Is there much environmental variability on it? Does it vary from site to site or distro to distro?
We only support actually one distribution. And that's Big Blue Button. That was Ubuntu 14.04 64-bit. So again, we actually years ago used to do a CentOS version. It took us about 2 months to develop it, test it, and so on. And at that point, we were like, ugh, do we want quality or do we want quantity? Do we want money distributions, or do we want a really good? So we would just recommend you do Ubuntu 14.04 64-bit. We're looking at other distributions in the future, but that's the one you would do. Follow the instructions, and again, you should have it running in 30 minutes. And then you've got full web conferencing system. Pick your favorite front end: WordPress, Moodle, Sakai, or build one with the API examples that we build in with the distribution. Or go through the developer docs. There only are about 12 API calls. Create a meeting, end a meeting, join a meeting, get meeting info, get the recordings, get meetings, get meeting info, get recordings, publish a recording, delete a recording. Those are pretty much it. And it's pretty simple HTTP-based API.
Okay, if you have a question on ZipDX, I saw you open up there. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering about two things actually. System requirements was one. What kind of server do you have like a baseline requirements as far as up to 10 users or something like that? And also, I forgot what the other question was, so you can answer that one.
Okay, so the installation documentation lists sort of the baseline. I mean, in broad strokes, we recommend a quad-core server, at least 4 gig of memory, Ubuntu 14.04 64-bit, 100 megabits symmetrical bandwidth. You want to have bandwidth to your Big Blue Button server, and then actually, you always recommend a dedicated server. And partly that's, and I can throw this out to the FreeSwitch folks, partly because we believe that FreeSwitch runs better on dedicated hardware because of the hardware timer. So we know lots of people run it on Amazon. We always recommend, if you're going to use a Big Blue Button server in production, partly because of FreeSwitch and the efficiencies of it, run it on a dedicated server. But I'd be interested, Brian or Ken, are you guys' thoughts? Like, would you still recommend running FreeSwitch on dedicated hardware over virtual machines?
Bare metal is preferred.
Yeah.
If you want to have performance, it is preferred.
Yeah. So we basically echo that, because the FreeSwitch is taking care of all the audio and soon to be more of the video. But we do know people, if you're going to test it, spin it up on an EC2 instance or Rackspace or anything and just install it. And I know lots of people who use it on virtual environments, and the ultimate is, does it do what you want it to do? The other question you're probably going to ask is, well, how many users could my server support? And we'll take guidance again from the FreeSwitch project in that we don't answer that question. We encourage you to test your server and determine how much your server will support. But there's no hard-coded numbers in Big Blue Button that says, it can't go above this certain user. 21 webcams being shared. I've seen lots of meetings larger than 50. We have the one-way audio now, so it even reduces the CPU load for mixing the audio. I would not recommend using Big Blue Button for a webinar, like I'll have 1,000 users. By design, we did not design Big Blue Button to be a webinar application. If you want to do webinar, that's easy. You should have one person sharing their webcam and one person sharing their audio, and you just stream it through a content distribution network. If you want to have 20 people together all sharing their webcams, all talking at the same time, that's a harder problem to solve, but it's the one where you get the larger use cases. The tip of the pyramid in terms of large number of users is a very tiny tip. Most classes that we see are, of the average class size is about 12 users. So if you have a server that, good hardware and bandwidth, and you're getting much more than that in terms of the class, you have something that you can build a distance education program around.
It's quite a different question too. Not just what kind of load will my server support, but what kind of load will my available bandwidth support. Presumably there are handles to adjust or control this. So
we try to tune the Big Blue Button server so pretty much out of the box it's ready. There's no real dials to pull. You can tweak the underlying components. You could tweak FreeSwitch and so on, but I don't know that anybody really does that very much. In terms of bandwidth, think of what WebRTC audio uses. Probably 7, 10 kilobits a second, or maybe I'm trying to think of it. I always have to go between bytes and kilobits. Let's call it 40 kilobits a second. Actually, you guys, Ken or Brian, what would the average WebRTC audio stream use?
It's about the same as a ulog call with Opus.
Right.
Maybe 64K.
Yeah, with overhead, you're probably in the 80 to 90 mark.
Okay, so I know our video takes about, let's say, 300 kilobits a second. The audio takes about, let's call it 100 kilobits at worst. We recommend for using Big Blue Button, the users have 0.5 megabits upstream and 1 megabits downstream. So it's in our docs, but that gets you sharing your audio, sharing your video, and you're looking at other audio and video as well. I mean, usually users have like a 10-to-1 ratio. They have, 1 megabits up, but 10 megabits down. So the real one is their megabits is up. And in terms of just making sure they have a good user experience, people would ask, well, what's better, wired or wireless connection if I'm on my laptop and I want to participate in a session? Well, obviously wired is better. Wireless networks are, decent. I wouldn't recommend trying to teach an online class from Starbucks. Starbucks is good, by the way, but I just use them as an example. And the bandwidth is to your server just as much bandwidth as you can get. We had people who, this is less now, but over the years we had people who were like, my server seems to be only supporting X number of users, and find out they have it on a 10 megabits connection. No, you really want 100 megabits. And if you're going to do a large number of users, more bandwidth. It's not hard to get a server these days that has a dedicated server that has 100 megabits symmetrical or more.
Sure. Incidentally, that lesson of wireless versus wired, wireless or Wi-Fi seems to be pervasive. It's everywhere, and it's coming into the collective consciousness as it's just there like air, and yet you can't. It really can't be relied upon. If you're the teacher, if you're the presenter in a webinar, something this sort of thing, and you're doing it over Wi-Fi that you don't own. If you're at a Starbucks or a public place or a hotel or something like that, you're inviting disaster. That said, my wife hates wires, but we still have a lot of them, and wires don't hiccup or fail or get shared in the ways that Wi-Fi do. So we like wires a lot.
I mean, we always say, look, if you're going to teach a class online with 50 students, give the students a chance to set themselves up ahead of time. Make sure the instructor is well prepared. They've had a chance to test it from their computer, from their bandwidth, whatever location they're using. And like, if a student can't hear or whatever, or don't freak out. Like, it's just, you're doing it online. They can refresh their browser. There's a recording. You have 50 people from different browsers, different computers, different network locations. So I think if people realize that, yeah, like this is pretty good, where I'm able to teach my students online in a way that wasn't possible not too many short years ago. And the thing is, the trend is getting better. Wireless gets better, bandwidth. We were talking before the call about, how the bandwidth has just gotten better over the years. So we see the infrastructure getting better. We see computers getting cheaper. We see it easier to spin up instances and use something like Big Blue Button. And I think the trend is in the right way. And with the work that we're doing, the HTML5 client, and later on a mobile client, we see lots more people, I think, just going to try the project out.
What does a mobile client mean for you guys? Is it kind of like a captive browser thing? Is that sort of the core of it, or is it going to be something more evolved than that?
So right now we're thinking very much on the HTML5 client, and that will be launched from a browser, runs in the browser. A mobile client, Adobe does provide tools to take an a Flash application and cross-compile it on Android and iOS, and it actually does a pretty good job. So we're looking hard at that, because if we can do that, we can share a lot of functionality. We don't have to rewrite a lot of code. And in the end, we're pragmatists, right? The users don't care when they launch that Android app or the iOS app. They just want it to work. So we can see some good progress in the HTML5 client, and there's already a developer release out there that if folks want, just go to bigbluebutton.org and click on Docs, and you'll see all the documentation with links to it. And there will be work on a mobile client. And we can imagine ourselves at some point writing a mobile client, natively instead of cross-compiling it. I would just love to see a really good WebRTC-based browser on iOS. That would make me very happy.
I think you're not alone in that. I think a lot of people would like to see Web, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I ask whether, because a lot of apps, it seems, are really just a captive browser. They're a browser that's a browser core with a UI wrapped around it. That the Tim Notepad app is an example.
If it works,
yeah.
Like we don't want to rewrite Big Blue Button just for one platform. I mean, if we have to do it, we'll do it. Damn it. But we would rather just, leverage as much as we can so that the most amount of users have a really good user experience. And, we'll do what we got to do. HTML5 first, iOS second. That's just the pragmatic approach to it.
Oh, the question comes up out of IRC. What about Bowser? Does Bowser work with Big Blue Button?
I know of it. In fact, we were we poked at it every now and then. It's probably due for us to take another look at it. I don't have an answer to that. I'd have to try it out.
It does not work, and if you compile it from source, if you can, that doesn't work either. So.
Okay. Oh, you just saved me some time, Ryan. Thanks.
It was definitely an ordeal.
When I looked at Bowser when the folks from Ericsson made a guest appearance here, and I tried to use a few things that I was familiar with it, I couldn't get any of them to work. I thought, okay, there's some magic to this that I don't have. I'm glad that it didn't work for you as well, because at least I'm not being that much of an idiot.
Yeah, like if anybody here on this call has some really good insight on how to get an HTML-based application that uses WebRTC to run on iOS, I would love to talk to them. I think I heard some coyotes in the background. The silence was deafening.
I don't think you're alone in that request.
I just got an IM from Randy, who may try and join us momentarily from Berlin, Camellia World. 10 minutes to the top of the hour. So this is all very interesting. I may yet have to spin up an instance of this to play with it. My particular angle on it would be wanting to add multiple audio channels in support of multiple languages and interpretation on the fly. That's a sort of a ZipDX specialty.
We're not far away. So closed captioning for us will be multi-language. So we have the front end and back end. So the idea is that a cartographer or a stenographer could come in, create a channel, other users could subscribe to it, and they would see the closed captioning for English or French. And it's not too far away to just say, well, we have other audio channels. and FreeSwitch provides some nice capabilities which we haven't yet built on in that area. But yeah, maybe Michael, you see something and other people want to jump in and help out.
Cool. Hey, Randy, trying to join. Don't know.
I'll wait till Fred's done. Oh, go ahead. I'm just answering questions.
How about anybody else in the FreeSwitch team? We seldom get so many FreeSwitchers into the Hangout like this.
I was wondering about that. Got a late start, I guess, though, no?
How's everything in Berlin?
It's wonderful. I didn't want to interrupt Fred because I wanted to tell you a little bit about what went on. We had a great time. It's just finished, you know. I'm dead, as you can see by looking at me.
How was the wine?
No wine.
No wine?
Yeah, because carry-on luggage only.
Oh.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Of course, if I was going to ClueCon,
that would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were drinking pink drinks with JB?
No, that's not my thing. Not my thing.
I tell you what, gentlemen, why don't we wrap up this public part of this, and we'll let YouTube go munch on it, and then we can come back and chat with Randy and others. And so, thank you, Fred. It was nice to catch up. You remind me that I need to pay more attention to things that you guys are doing up there. You also remind me that I kind of miss my Canadian roots a bit.
You're welcome to come back anytime, okay?
All right, folks. We will not have an extra today, so we'll just wind it down and be right back.